$52,000. That is what Alex Eala made for 1 week of work in Washington, D.C. That is more than 15 million pesos in just 7 days. Now, here is a second number, and I want you to compare them directly. $25,000. That was the total prize money for the very first professional tournament she ever won. Not just her cut, but the whole amount. All the rounds, all the players, from the winner down to the last qualifier, spread across the entire event.
Chiang Rai, Thailand, 2022.
Only 4 years sit between those two figures. Think about that for a moment. The entire prize pool for the tournament that started her pro career was not even 1/10 of what she earned just for showing up to a final on a Monday afternoon. And that is the figure everyone put in the headlines this week. The money, because money is simple to talk about. Money is a language that every single person watching this understands right away. But the money is not the real story. The money is just the receipt. Here is the number that actually counts. Before Washington, she had 1,666 ranking points and was ranked 28th in the world. After Washington, she had 2,166 points. And with that, she became the first player from the Philippines in the 51-year history of the WTA rankings to break into the top 20. Not the top 100, not the top 40, but the top 20. Only 20 players on the entire planet are there, and she is now one of them. And this is the part that almost nobody explained to you this week, including some very major outlets that covered the story. 20 is not a medal. It is not a bragging right. It is not a nice round number for a TV graphic. Top 20 is a door. It is a real mechanical threshold inside professional tennis, and crossing it just gave her 3 specific advantages that a player ranked 28th in the world simply does not have. 3 things she could not access on Sunday and can access now. That is what this video is about. Those 3 things and what they are about to do to the rest of her career, starting in about 3 weeks in New York. So if you came here to watch the winners again, there are plenty of channels doing that today, and some of them do it well. This is not that. This is the video about what that number actually buys and what it cost her family to get there. Because the money is the part everyone understands. The ranking is the part almost nobody does. And to understand what just opened up for her, you first have to understand what this sport actually costs. Tennis is not basketball. It is not football. In those sports, someone hands you a contract while you are still developing. There is a team, a trainer, a doctor, a bus, a salary. You get paid while you get better. Tennis works the other way around. Outside the top 100 in the world, you are not an athlete on a payroll. All business, and you are the only employee, and you are also the entire expense column. You pay the coach, you pay the flights, you pay the hotel, you pay for strings and rackets and grips and the physio when your shoulder starts acting up, and the visa, and the excess baggage fee for a bag full of rackets. Nobody reimburses you. There is no podium. And if you lose in the first round on Tuesday, you fly home having lost money at your own job. That is the world Alex Eala lived in for years. And I do not think most people watching her lift that trophy in Washington have any picture of it. Go back to Chiang Rai in 2022. That was her first professional title. The entire tournament had $25,000 in prize money for everybody in the draw combined. So the winner takes home a slice of that, and out of that slice you pay your coach, your flights, your hotel. That is not a career. That is a hobby that occasionally covers its own airfare. Now 2023, she walks into her first Grand Slam qualifying event at the Australian Open. She loses in the first round of qualifying. Not the tournament, the qualifying. The tournament that decides who gets into the tournament. Her career high ranking that year was 143, which she reached in July. And I want to translate that number for you because 143 sounds mediocre, and it is not. Number 143 in the world means you are by any sane definition one of the best human beings alive at this activity. Millions of people who play tennis. You are the 143rd best, and you are still financially underwater. Now add the piece that almost nobody accounts for with her specifically. Geography. There is no WTA tournament in the Philippines. There never has been. So think about what that means as a line item. An American junior can drive to tournaments. A Spanish player can take a train. A French player can play half a season inside her own country, sleeping at home, eating at home, spending nothing. Every single tournament of Alex Eala's life has been an international flight. There is no home event. There is no cheap week. There is no version of her career where the travel budget gets smaller. Which brings us to the decision. And the decision is the real beginning of this story, not any tennis match. Because at some point her family looked at all of that. The cost, the odds, the distance, the complete absence of any Filipino who had ever done this, and they chose to keep paying anyway. They sent her to the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca as a scholarship student, which means she left the country as a child. Left her mother, her father, her brother, her friends, her food, her language. Traded an entire ordinary childhood for a maybe, not a promise, a maybe. And if you are Filipino watching this, you do not need me to explain that decision because it is the most familiar decision in your entire culture. Somebody in your family got on a plane. Somebody paid up front in years with no guarantee attached and hoped it would be worth it for the people who came after. She just did it with a tennis racket instead of a nursing license. So that is the frame I want you to keep for the rest of this video. $252,000 is not a prize. It is a return on an investment that started more than a decade ago and had no proof of concept for most of that time. If that framing is useful to you and you want the version of tennis coverage that talks about the economics and the ranking mechanics instead of just the highlights, subscribe. I am tracking her all the way through the US Open, and the next few weeks are going to be the most interesting of her career. So the family paid for years with nothing to show for it. And by the summer of 2025, it finally looked like the bet had landed. Which is exactly why what happened next was so hard to watch. March 2025, Miami. Eala is in that tournament on a wild card, which means she did not qualify on ranking. She was invited. That is the polite way of saying she was not good enough on paper to be there. And then she beats Madison Keys, a Grand Slam champion. Then she beats Iga Swiatek, ranked second in the world at the time. She reaches the semifinals of a WTA 1000, the first Filipino in history to do it, and she climbs to number 73, the first Filipino woman ever inside the top 100. The country loses its mind, and rightly so. But that result quietly created a problem, and it is a problem that most casual fans have no idea exists. Here is how the WTA ranking actually works. Your points do not accumulate forever. Every result you produce lives on your ranking for exactly 52 weeks, and then it falls off. Gone. Which means every big week you have creates a debt with a due date. Read that again, because it is genuinely counterintuitive. When Alexandra Eala made that run in Miami, she did not just earn points, she created an obligation. 52 weeks later, those points would evaporate. And to simply stay at the same ranking, she would have to produce an equally good result in that same week of the calendar. Not a better one, an equal one, just to stand still. So the mini question is this: how long did she have to prove Miami was not a fluke? Exactly 52 weeks. The clock started the moment the confetti fell. Hold that, because in about 6 minutes I am going to show you the exact moment that debt got paid off. Down to the point. Now, June 2025, Eastbourne, England, grass court. She reaches her first WTA Tour final ever, and she loses it. And I do not want to talk about how that felt because you can imagine how it felt. I want to talk about what it cost her structurally, because that is the part nobody covered. A tour title is not just a trophy in this sport. It is a category change. It moves you from the group of players who can beat anybody on a good day into the group of players who close matches out for a living. And sponsors, tournaments, and schedulers treat those two groups completely differently. She got to the door at Eastbourne, and it did not open. She finished 2025 ranked 50th in the world. 50th is a career high. 50th is also the worst neighborhood in professional tennis. And let me explain why. If you are ranked between roughly 30 and 50, you have solved one problem and inherited a worse one. You are good enough to get into the main draw of every tournament.
No qualifying, no wildcard begging.
That part is fixed. But at the majors and the big WTA 1000 events, only a limited number of players get seeded. And seeding is what protects you from the top of the draw in the opening rounds down at 45. You are usually the unseeded name that a top 5 player draws in round 1 or 2. So your reward for being the 45th best player alive is that you get handed Sabalenka or Goff or Swiatek before the tournament has really started. You do double the work for the same result. You put together a great week, and your ranking barely moves because you got eliminated by somebody who should not have been in your path that early. Then May 2026, Roland Garros. She goes out early to Eva Liss, who happens to be a close friend of hers. And in the language of this video, here is what that loss actually was. That is the kind of result that lets old point